Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay, guys. I haven't been like usually I don't really react to a lot of World War II stuff because prior to me even starting this channel, World War II was the one conflict I felt like I knew a decent amount on, and so I wanted to cover things I knew less on. But apparently, I was mistaken because there's still a lot of stuff I didn't know, and so I'm continuing it. I don't know how far I'm going to get into this, guys. There's like 50 episodes. But this is an episode I absolutely want to watch, and it has to do with the Soviet invasion of Poland. So clearly, the Germans and the Soviets didn't invade Poland at the exact same time. Like, they weren't that coordinated. And so I want to learn what happened. So, preemptive, like, World War II, original link, top description. My name's Connor if you're new. I like to learn things. Help me learn things, please, or learn with me. Let's go. The Russians are coming. Soviet invasion of Poland. I'm ready.
September 22nd, 1939.
Hope everyone's doing well. Sorry, I feel like I was rude.
September 22nd, 1939. Germany invaded Poland at the beginning of the month, and this week, the Polish days of defense and desperation get far, far worse. This week, the Soviet Union also invades Poland. I'm Indy Nidell. This is World War II. Last week, the Poles managed to surprise the Germans at the Bzura River, but after a few days of success, the tide turned and the Germans took over 150,000 Polish POWs. In the captured territory, the German war on civilians continued, though many in the German army were opposed to it. And in the West, Britain began landing troops in France in large numbers. In Poland itself, Warsaw is surrounded by the 16th, but refuses to surrender. The Polish army has retreated eastward and has planned to maybe regroup around Lvov, but those hopes are dashed on the 17th when the Soviets suddenly invade. Even Hitler's generals were unaware that this was going to happen. This day, Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov declares in Moscow that the Polish government has ceased to exist. So Soviet troops have occupied eastern Poland to protect Russian citizens in western Belarusia and western Ukraine.
Okay. So was the agreement between the Soviets and Germans already made, or is it made right before the Soviets start? Because it seems like the Soviets are sort of, well, the Germans are being very successful. Why not join in and just, make sure that we take a lot of the territory that is inevitably going to fall?
And now I'm going to go Russian citizens in western Belarusia and western Ukraine. And now I'm going to go off on a tangent here. An interesting point by Max Hastings in All Hell Let Loose. From a 2018 perspective, and because of, spoiler alert, the way the war ended with Russia on the Allied side, many historians have accepted the post-war Soviet Union's claim that they were neutral in the early stages of the war. This is false. In 1939, he made a historic decision to acquiesce in German aggression in return for Nazi support for Moscow's own program of territorial aggrandizement. Whatever excuses the Soviet leader later offered, and although his armies never fought in partnership with the Wehrmacht, the Nazi-Soviet pact established a collaboration. And it is certainly true to the world at large this week in 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union are the twin faces of totalitarianism. Now, Hitler has hopes that the Russian invasion will cause the Allies to declare war on the Soviet Union. And though there is some debate in London, for example, as to whether Britain's commitments to Poland involved fighting against another enemy, it is only Winston Churchill and Leslie Hoare Belisha, the Secretary of State for War, who think war with the Soviet Union is something to prepare for. The Foreign Office say Britain's Polish guarantee was only in case of German invasion. The Poles are at first bewildered and then completely outraged that their Western allies have done nothing to help them. But what could they really do? German General Erich von Manstein writes of the invasion of Poland, "It's a grand decision of the Führer in view of the attitude of the Western powers up till now. His offer to solve the Polish question was so obliging that England and France, if they had really wanted peace, should have pushed Poland into accepting." The 17th is in fact the day that the Poles expect the French to begin their promised offensive on the Western Front. But instead, the French call off their probing attacks in Saarbrücken. There was going to be a larger advance, but the Polish collapse sort of makes it seem pointless to them. The next day, Polish President Ignacy Mościcki and Army Commander Edvard Rydz-Śmigły enter Romania. They are interned because Mościcki issues an official proclamation for Poles to continue the war and make their way to France, and is thus functioning as a belligerent regime on Romanian soil. The Germans protested, and the Romanians enforced international law rather than risk German intervention. And as the Soviets advance, there is basically no defense against them because of the German invasion. The Russians have 2 army groups invading. The Polish have 18 battalions in the whole east of Poland. As for the rest of the week of war, on the 17th, British aircraft carriers are taken off of anti-U-boat patrols.
So, to the Germans, it's not so much that they're happy that Russia is joining them in the Polish invasion because they need help. Clearly they don't. But more because it kind of throws a wrench into the Allied train of thought when it comes to Germany. Because now it's like, oh, Russia is also invading Poland right now. Now, could they also declare war on the on Germany and the Soviet Union? But then who are you fighting against? And who are you fighting with?
After the Courageous is sank by U-29, 518 sailors die. The following day, the British public hears the first broadcast of Lord Haw Haw from Berlin.
Germany calling, Germany calling. Here are the Reichs in ambush. Station Bremen and Station DXB on the 31-meter bend. You are about to hear our news in English.
Lord Haw Haw is actually Irish-American William Joyce, and his broadcasts...
He's got the fencing scar?
...are German propaganda designed to demoralize the British people. By the 19th, Soviet advanced troops reach the Hungarian border. In the north, Vilna falls. The Soviets link up with the Germans at Brest-Litovsk, which is given to the Soviets as per the August 23rd.
Such a tragic place to be in as the Polish. Being like, all right, Germany is attacking. All right. Oh, they're not really doing anything. Oh, the Soviets are attacking. Oh, they're not. So, oh, the feeling of betrayal must have felt insane.
Secret agreement. On the 20th.
I'm not, by the way, sometimes I worry that like I'm coming across as an American saying this and saying that, America is clearly safe and doing its own thing. Eventually is brought into the war with the Japanese and then the Germans, but I hope my words aren't construed as like I'm simply a person, not an American, just reacting to this. So I know. Forget
Soviets, as per the August 23rd secret agreement. On the 20th, Adolf Hitler enters Danzig and is given a huge welcome by the mostly German population. After this, he goes to the resort town of Sopot and meets with Karl Brandt, his personal doctor, Leonardo Conti, the chief German medical officer, and Philipp Buhler, Reichsleiter, the second highest political officer of the Nazi Party, just below Hitler himself. There, Hitler lays out his plans for killing the insane in Germany. He backdates his order to September 1st and gives the green light to give a merciful death to all those who are incurably ill. The organization that will carry out the euthanasia program will be known as T4, and it's named after the address of its center, Tiergartenstrasse 4 in Berlin. Werner Heide, a psychology and neurology professor, is its head, and the program will scour the asylums for those to receive a merciful death. One of the doctors will explain the program like this.
Okay, because I'm curious what their standard is for this mass killing of people who are incurably ill or infirmed? I mean, what crosses the line? I'm hoping he says it right here.
The idea is unbearable to me that the best, the flower of our youth, must lose its life at the front in order that feeble-minded and asocial elements can have a secure existence in the asylum.
So this is a super utilitarian view, right?
Over the next couple of years,
It's horrible.
tens of thousands of people judged insane will be put to death in Germany. But not everyone is for Hitler's extreme agenda. The Einsatzgruppen, the SS task forces, have continued killing Jews in the towns that fell under German control. But on the 20th, the German 14th Army reports that a lot of the soldiers are really uneasy by what they call illegal measures taken by the SS task force assigned to them under General Udo von Boysch. Actually, one grievance from many fighting soldiers is that the SS men are not fighting at the front, but rather against defenseless civilians. Field Marshal von Rundstedt, in charge of the whole Army Group South, then says Boysch's men will no longer be tolerated in the war zone. The crisis between the fighting soldiers and their SS counterparts is not going to resolve itself easily. The thing is, Reinhard Heydrich, who had formed the Einsatzgruppen on Heinrich Himmler's instructions, has a more ambitious plan in mind. On the 21st, he has an emergency conference in Berlin with all of the SS commanders of the task forces in Poland. In order to prepare for the ultimate goal, Polish Jews are to be concentrated in a few of the larger cities. Jews not living in those cities and any Jews living in Western Poland are to be sent to them. So Western Poland is going to be totally cleared of Jews. Now, once the Jews are in these cities, they will be limited to one quarter and not allowed to go to the rest of the city. There will even be a council of Jewish elders set up to ensure that all the movement of the Jews happens on time.
I'm sure the fact that a lot of these people who carry out these things know that the Germans themselves, I'm not sure if this was intended as a result of killing the infirmed in Germany, but knowing that their own countrymen who are deemed feeble and incurably handicapped or whatnot were put to death, then that'll make them feel even less caring of killing anyone deemed that way as they move forward into non-German territory. And that thought process that, you know, everyone back at home who is feeble and infirm was put to death. Therefore, what right do you have to live? Am I reading too much into that? I feel like I'm not. And that could have an effect on the normal soldier and how much pity he gives to people they come in contact with.
So they are going to reinstitute the medieval concept of the ghetto. This is a first step towards their final solution to the Jewish question. Of course, the task force killings don't stop because of this. At the end of the week, the Brandenburg Division reached Wlocławek, where they will spend a few days blowing up synagogues, looting Jewish shops, and rounding up and murdering prominent Jews. I've talked about the Soviets in Europe, but what about the Soviet Union in Asia this week? Well, the armistice signed 8 days ago on the 15th between Japan and the Soviet Union goes into effect as this week begins. The fighting between the Soviets and Mongolians on one side and the Japanese on the other had gone on over the summer until the end of August. See, with the threat of war in Europe, Joseph Stalin had wanted to end the Japanese actions from Manchukuo, Japan's Manchurian puppet state. The Japanese, for their part, are worried about the threat of Bolshevik expansion and the fact that the Soviet Union was supplying the Chinese, with whom Japan is currently at war, with T-26 tanks, money, and military advisors. Back in November 1936, Japan even signed the Anti-Comintern, Communist International, Pact with Germany, which Italy and Spain later signed, under which Germany recognized Manchukuo, and after which tension on the Mongolian border grew between Russia and Japan. There were border skirmishes in 1937, and a big one, the Changkufeng incident in 1938. And Japan's Kwangtung army grew frustrated with Emperor Hirohito for not letting them attack the Soviets in force, whom they assumed, mistakenly, would not fight back. However, many Japanese politicians did not want a Mongolian war against the Soviet Union, but the Japanese army, without telling Tokyo, had issued an order to the commanders in the region to act as they saw fit on the spot, without consulting the general staff, hence the fighting all summer and eventual stalemate. By late August,
I'm sure that provides a little bit of leeway for the people saying that, because by saying that they can act on the spot means that they could carry out further incursions or fighting with Mongolians and Russians, but then claim, if they were got in trouble for it, that they just told them to act how they saw fit, and how they acted wasn't how they saw fit. That's an easy way of kind of getting your way and having a means of defending yourself against any accusations of wrongdoing, you know?
General Zhukov staff, hence the fighting all summer and eventual stalemate. By
Let me
late
know if I'm
August,
wrong.
General Zhukov was ready for his surprise attack, which we saw 3 weeks ago ended in overwhelming Soviet victory. During that attack, Germany and the Soviet Union had signed a pact of their own as German troops massed on the Polish border. The Japanese were stunned by the unexpected defeat, and this has far-reaching results. The Chinese, both the communists and nationalists, were emboldened and encouraged by it, of course, but the Japanese army and those who had favored striking north against the Soviets now fade from prominence, and those who favored striking south, led by the Navy, can have their day. So this summer series of battles, the battles of Khalkhin Gol, was a major influence on the future direction of Japanese aggression. But Japan needs a morale boost after the loss to the Russians, and this week they begin the...
What was the state of the Soviet-Mongolian relationship, if anyone knows? And could the Japanese have said, you know, okay, we will... Look how freaking big the Soviets' territory is. All right, we won't fight the Soviets, but we will fight the Mongolians, and therefore cut off a large portion of land where the Soviets could supply the Chinese, make it easier for them. But I'm not sure how connected the Mongolians and Soviets were.
Was a major influence on the future direction of Japanese aggression. But Japan needs a morale boost after the loss to the Russians, and this week they begin the first battle of Changsha against the Chinese, which we'll see more of in a couple of weeks. And as the week comes to an end, the Soviets take Lvov, and Romanian Prime Minister Călinescu is murdered by the fascist organization, the Iron Guard. Polish independence has now nearly been extinguished as both the Germans and the Soviets advance, and the Soviets no longer have to worry about the Japanese. And Hitler lays out his plans for putting the insane in the Reich to death. And Heydrich tells his commanders to recreate the ghetto system in Poland in preparation for the final solution of what to do with the Jews. I don't think I have to add any more, since we all know what that is. If you'd like to learn more about the conflict between Poland and Soviet Russia, you can click here for our Between Two Wars episode about the Polish-Soviet War. And please support us on Patreon so we can make ever more uploads and ever more fantastic history. Every single dollar helps. See you next time.
Thank you. Interesting how the next episode is called Poland is Crushed. I figured that was already happened this episode, so I'll check that out. Again, I don't want to make any promises as to they have dozens, World War II, Time Goes History, dozens of episodes, and I don't want to. I've learned the lesson of not wanting to say I'm going into something only to disappoint when I stop going into it. And sometimes when I feel less pressure, I end up going kind of more into it anyway. So I don't know how far I'm going to go into this. But the more I watch these, the more I realize that I wasn't as solid on my information about World War II as I thought I was. Sorry, my fault. I wasn't as informed about a lot of the stages of World War II as I thought I was. So I'm going to keep watching this stuff. Who knows? Love you all. Hope you're all doing well. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning. Bye, guys.